Welcome to another Ziva Math video. In this video, we are going to graph proportional relationships presented in word problems. Trey deposits $100 into his bank account each week. Create a graph to represent this relationship. So we're given a verbal description of the word problem that we need to graph. And looking at this problem, we know that Trey is depositing money into his bank account. So we have money that's being deposited, and he's doing this each week. So we also have weeks. So we're going to label our X values weeks because how much money being deposited is depending on how many weeks have gone by. So y is going to be our total deposited. And from here, you can likely go ahead and fill in your table because this is a very simplified problem, but it also may make sense to write the equation that goes with this word problem and go from there. So we know that every week Trey is going to deposit $100. So it's going to be 100 times the number of weeks, or times X, is going to equal our total amount deposited, or Y. So if we were to write the equation, we would be working with the equation Y equals 100X. And from here, we can find our points by plugging our values into the equation, but also you can likely just fill in the table. We know that at 0 weeks, Trey hasn't made any money yet. He's not deposited any money into his account, so the total deposited is 0. Well, after the first week, we've only had 1 week, and every week Trey deposits $100, so our Y value will be 100. And at 2 weeks, Trey will have deposited another $100 for a total of $200. So you don't necessarily need an equation and need to work with an equation to come up with your ordered pairs. Once we have the table, remember these x and y values are the x and y values of your ordered pair. So we have the point 0, 0, 1, 100, and 2, 200. We can use more points, but in order to make your graph, you really only need 2 or 3 points to get an accurate graph. So now we're graphing our points 0, 0, 1, 100, and 2, 200. And we're going to add the line through our graph. And this is our graph that represents the relationship of Trey depositing $100 into his bank account every week. Denise types 60 words per minute, and we're going to create a graph to represent this relationship. Regardless of how you come up with the ordered pairs you're graphing, you do have to identify whether the words or the minutes are your X values and which ones are your Y values. The number of words being typed is dependent on the number of minutes Denise has been typing. This means that the number of minutes will need to be your X values, and the number of words will need to be your Y values. Remember, X is your independent variable and Y is your dependent variable. I want to use the equation to come up with the points we'll be graphing. Denise types 60 words per minute, so our equation will have to be 60 times x, which is the minutes she's been typing, and 60x will equal y, the number of words typed. From here, we can substitute our x values for x in the equation and solve for y. And I can do that with an x value of 0. I'm taking the equation, and instead of putting in x, I'm going to put 0 in for x. So I'll have 60 times 0, and 60 times 0 equals 0. And that makes sense with the problem we were just given. Denise hasn't started typing yet if we're at 0 minutes, and if she hasn't started typing, then she hasn't typed any words. So our y value would be 0. Then when x is 1, or when Denise has been typing for 1 minute, well, I'm sure you can tell me that if she's been typing for 1 minute, she's only typed 60 words. But let's look at it with our equation. We're going to take the x value of 1, and we're going to plug 1 in for x. So we'll have 60 times 1, and 60 times 1 is 60. So when x is 1, y is 60. And the next value that I'm going to graph is x equals 2. And I'm going to take 2, I'm going to substitute it in for x in my equation. So I'll have 60 times 2, and 60 times 2 equals 120. So when x is 2, y is 120. And once I have my table set up, the values in my table become my ordered pairs that I'm going to be graphing. So I'll be graphing the point 0, 0, which is at the origin. Then make sure you've noted how they've labeled our y-axis. It's not labeled by 60, but it's labeled by 30. So if we're going to graph 160 and 120, we want to make sure that we get our points in the correct place. A cell phone plan costs $28 per month. Create a graph to represent this relationship. And in order to create this graph, we're going to need some ordered pairs. So we'll need some x and y values, and we'll need to know what those x and y values represent. Well, our plan costs $28 per month. So months has to be our X value because the cost is dependent on the months. And notice on our y-axis, I didn't label anything on the y-axis so that we can talk about that when we get there. We may also find having the equation useful to getting our ordered pairs. So it's $28 per month. So we're going to have 28 times X equals Y, our total cost. And in month 0, before we even start with our plan, in month 0, we're going to have 0 cost. And we could figure that out by plugging in 0 for X, but we don't need to. And if we're looking at month number 1, well, in 1 month, we've had a cost of $28 per month. So when X is 1, Y has to be 28. And we could also figure that out by substituting 1 in for X in our equation. Now, a lot of times we would just go to month 2, but for some reasons, let's say you want to look at month 4. You don't have to go X equals 0, 1, 2, 3. We can plug in 4 for X. We can go straight to 4 months. And in this case, we may want to use the equation to find our y value. So to use the equation to find our y value, we're going to substitute 4 in for x. So we would have 28 times 4 equals y, and 28 times 4 is 112. And our x and y values are now our ordered pairs. So we could write them out to the side, but if we understand they're our ordered pairs, we can go straight from the table and put them into our graph. And looking at our y values, labeling our y-axis by 28 is what's going to make the most sense for us. So we went ahead and labeled our y-axis with 28. 28 more is 56, 28 more is 84, and that gets everything labeled. And then I can plot these points. I plotted 0, 0, 128, 4, 112, and then we draw the line through our points. And remember, 2 or 3 points is ideal. You can make a line with just 2 points. I like to use 3 just to make sure I didn't make a mistake. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to Ziva Math for more videos.